What's up, everybody? Welcome to our Thursday cash making webinars in the 7-Figure MSP IT and MSP Business Owners Group. I am Chris Weiser. Good to see you guys today. I have with me a super special guest, Jeff Nevins from Simeon Cloud. What's up, sir?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, It's, you're based where? San Jose, I think, if I remember right?
Right now I'm in Santa Cruz.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the last time. So we actually did like a green room webinar prep for this like a week ago. You guys were like in the middle of the redwood forest. It was,
Yeah.
where were you?
Yosemite.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We were in the middle of the sequoias, literally.
It was pretty damn cool because it's like think of the world that we live in now where you guys are doing meetings there. We're all over the world. It's pretty awesome. I really like that.
It is great. It's been an awesome experience being able to have that flexibility.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I like these guys is I was an MSP. Those of you guys that are watching this know this. I was an MSP for 10 plus years. I sold hosted exchange back in the day before it was Office 365. And then as Office 365 came on, it became this like giant pain in the ass to deal with. It was like a headache. There was things all over the place. There were so many different pieces. And Simeon Cloud, you guys fixed that problem. Why don't you give us a little background on what you guys do? And then we're going to get into some guts of what your program is and what you guys offer and how you solve the problems that MSPs run into. So tell us a little about Simeon Cloud.
Sure. So Simeon is an approach to really bring that kind of life cycle management and automation and maturity that the software cloud space works in today and apply that to the configuration processes that you have to do in order to manage Microsoft 365. Microsoft has actually really made a good offering in terms of being able to have a package they sell you that includes device management, identity access management, and productivity solutions, all in that Microsoft 365 SKU. And there just isn't a good way of managing all those different services today across all your different clients as a managed service provider. And so what Simeon does is it brings automation to that space to be able to operate more efficiently.
So, okay, so you're giving me some ideas in my head here. First of all, before I state that, if you guys that are watching this have any questions, throw it in the chat. I am monitoring this. Also, Josh from the Simeon side is monitoring, so he'll be answering some things on the fly for you guys. But so you mentioned all the back end and the policies. What about security? Obviously, cybersecurity is becoming a big factor right now. We have all kinds of different issues. We got all the hacking things that are happening. We have all these different pieces that are on the rise since COVID and the pandemic started. What does that look like on the security side? How can you make that? You're making it more efficient is what I gather. Am I correct on that?
Yep. And then the other thing that we offer is from our own experience as consultants managing networks, implementing Intune, implementing Office 365, Simeon includes a set of baseline configurations to help you establish, get your environment set up as quickly as possible, but also make sure you're applying the best practice security configurations that keep your clients secure.
Yeah, I think that's pretty key. Making sure that the client side, is there a single pane of glass that they can actually manage Office 365 in? What does that look like?
So we offer management through the Azure portal. That's what we support. So if you're familiar with using the Azure portal, you know how to use Simeon. What Simeon does, though, is it lets you manage your common configurations in an Azure portal. And then you can take what you did in that Azure portal and apply it to all of your different tenants. And that's what we call the practice of having a baseline configuration that you can use, not just for one client, but all your clients.
Yeah. So actually, so you mentioned that. That means we can onboard faster. That means we can make things more efficient. This is me, like IT, MSP, CEO guy talking right now. Think about from that standpoint, we can onboard much faster, have a single tech manage all these different clients. Am I right there? That's what this sounds like to me.
Absolutely. So onboarding faster with the click of one button is one function of Simeon. Another is to give you confidence that what you're configuring is the way you expect, right? If you look at how many steps are involved in setting up an Office 365 environment, there's hundreds of them. And then those steps change as you learn more and as you onboard more tenants. And you want to be able to go back and say, look, this is my current set of best practice configurations. I want all my clients to have them. And so what Simeon does through that automation is it gives you confidence that all your clients are configured the way you want them to be.
Yeah, I got a question that just came in from the crowd here. Oh, this is great. Somebody actually said, here's a good one. You should give me some hairs. I think it's referring to your beautiful head of hair versus my non-good hair. But anyway, here's an actual relevant question. This is from Steve. I'm interested in robotic process automation for my client. Is that something you guys can work with or help on?
We don't specialize in robotic process automation, but RPA is definitely one big thing in the industry right now. And interestingly, Microsoft 365 includes Microsoft's take on RPA, which is what it used to be called Flow. Now they call it Power Platform and Power Automate. So, if you're interested in getting started in the RPA space, automating processes like setting up new users, onboarding, setting up workflows, approvals, even automating testing of certain websites, by having the mouse move around and clicks things and make sure they're online. Power Automate does give you a lot of that functionality.
Yeah, and it kind of brings up the next question, which I had. It's just one that I had kind of separately made for myself. You guys can also help with client deployment, like client application deployment. Talk about that a little bit for me. I want to hear about that because that's pretty interesting.
So, sure. So Intune is Microsoft's enterprise device management solution. And as part of that, Intune can deploy apps. So you can use Autopilot and Intune and have a device configured, up and running within 30 minutes of getting it straight from the manufacturer. You don't need to manage any gold images. You don't need to constantly be updating your images. And you don't have to have a process in between buying the computer from Dell and actually installing it at the client. So part of Intune is application deployment, and Simeon offers an easy way of packaging those applications and automating them. So that's part of your Intune deployment.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about how you guys integrate with Intune, because I don't think, just in my experience in my client base that we have, there's not a lot of MSPs that are actually really using it at all, let alone to its full potential. How can you guys help them use that, and how can it get even better? Because it's very rarely used based on what I've seen.
So in the last year, it's gone from very rarely used, and in the Gartner quadrant, it's like not mature enough to actually mature for rollout. And so I've actually in the last year seen way more organizations than I ever would have expected start to adopt Intune, in part because using another solution for device management, like Workspace ONE by VMware, it's a whole nother set of cost. And you're already paying, if you have O365, you're probably already paying the Microsoft 365 license, and that includes Intune out of the box. And it plays really well with all the other Microsoft technologies, which you really can't get away from, like O365 and SharePoint Online and OneDrive and all those things. So Intune, I've seen a huge growth in the last year. What we do, because there's definitely a learning curve, just like there is with Workspace ONE or any other enterprise device management system, what we do is we give you, as part of that baseline configuration, a fully functioning Intune environment. So if you just apply the built-in Simeon baseline configuration, you get a functional Intune environment in less than a half hour.
That's pretty crazy. So, let's actually pivot this a little bit. And I know we're going to have some guys that are asking about this. Let's pivot away from the tech stuff a little bit to, I'm concerned on my side. How do I use Simeon Cloud to maximize my profitability and maximize my efficiency with Office 365? How can, what's your, maybe top 3 or 4 tips that an MSP can use to do that? How do you make more money? How do you be more efficient?
Sure. So, I mean, number one is it gives you the ability to scale and take on new clients more easily. So coming from a consulting background myself, I used to spend about 10 to 15 hours a month managing configurations, doing application deployments, making sure that one client had the same configuration as another client, I cut that down by about 80%. So I went from spending 10 hours a month per client to spending 2 hours a month per client. And in doing that, I was also able to take on new clients and bring them up to date and get them onboarded in a matter of a few hours instead of a matter of a few weeks. And by doing that, it gives you the ability to take on new clients, scale your business way more efficiently than without.
Well, you think about the weight, and I want you guys to think about this that are watching this, the weight that managing Office 365 is on you and the time to deploy that onboarding piece. That takes, you just mentioned a huge thing. It takes like weeks sometimes to get all this onboarded. What are all the features that make you guys so special, that save all this time and money? Can you just kind of go through a little bit of that for me?
Sure. Well, no one else is doing this in this space right now. You look around and you've heard of Terraform, Pulumi, Puppet, Chef. There's a ton of automation in the software development space in the cloud, and the full infrastructure management, managing virtual machines in the cloud, managing services in the cloud. There is no automation that exists right now, or no product that offers automation of the Microsoft 365 stack. At closest, some people have written some scripts to help speed up a few processes here or there, but there is no holistic solution that we've seen in the industry that helps you manage all of it together.
I think this is so unique to MSP coming in. And I think one thing I want to tell you guys, it's very probably difficult for you guys at Simeon. You're kind of trailblazing right now in this industry. This is something that's in the Fortune 500 and in the enterprise space, but it's not in the MSP space. And you're bringing this in. So you're kind of like breaking new ground, being different, like I said, trailblazing. But I want you guys that are watching this to think about how important this is, the ability to maximize efficiency, onboard quickly, that automation piece. That is so key, right, Jeff? That's monster.
It is. That's the only way to scale, to really scale effectively, because otherwise every new person that you bring on to help you scale and help you set up another client, you have to train them. You have to make sure that they know all the different configurations that they need to make. After you set up a tenant, you need to do a ton of testing. So all of those manual processes, which are hard to scale because they require subject matter expertise from your technicians, Simeon automates that away. So you don't need everyone to be an expert in O365 in order to manage it.
Yeah, you could probably even, what level skill do you have to run your tool and use out of this? Obviously, it's off the Azure portal. But what do they need to do? Because it sounds to me like it's pretty basic, and you could probably almost have a level 1 tech managing this, and even maybe a project manager managing the implementations and the onboarding. But the actual execution is not super difficult from what we talked about.
Sure. So you're still going to need someone that understands the configurations they're making on O365. But that one person can set up the configurations. And then you can have techs that are, an L1 tech understanding, I need to click this button, and that's going to take the configuration that the expert defined, and it's going to go and deploy it to all of my clients. And so you only need one person that really needs to understand Intune and Azure AD and the like. You don't need a whole team of those people.
Yeah, I think that's pretty key, making sure that it's super efficient, super tight. What kind of processes do you guys, do you have a recommended process kit? Do you give onboarding materials? Talk about that a little bit, because we want to get into
Sure.
How does an MSP do this? And really quick, Paul Burgess just asked, got a link for this. I'm going to throw a link up, Paul. Just hang tight for a couple minutes. We're going to have a link to how you get started here shortly. But walk us through a little bit of the onboarding pieces, and what kind of process can you give an MSP? Because mostly, and Jeff, so you know what's behind this, most MSPs are pretty weak on process. They know tech really well, but they struggle with building process and making sure that all that stuff's out there. So how can you guys help in that area?
So first of all, this is why we provide the Simeon baseline, because it really serves as like a quick start, get started fast way that MSPs can learn about how to manage Microsoft 365, even if they don't have any experience presently. We also offer, being experts in this space, we offer consulting services to help people that aren't using Intune and aren't really leveraging the full set of services that are included in O365 and Microsoft 365 will work with you to get you up and running and get you up to speed so that you're comfortable managing clients that are using Intune, and so that you can implement new clients by yourself. So we're happy to help people and hold their hands and get them into this space, even if they're not there right now.
Yeah, I think that's so key. Here's a great question from George McCracken. Would this bolt onto existing Office 365 licenses, or would licenses be included with the Simeon service?
So this Simeon is a totally separate product from the O365 license. So you would be getting an O365, or really more accurately, in this case, a Microsoft 365 license. People use the terms interchangeably just because Microsoft has made it so confusing. But
they did a good job of that one.
Most people, even if they don't know it, they have a Microsoft 365 license now because Microsoft sort of slipped it in there in their new licensing agreements. But the answer is that Simeon is a separate process. It's a website, and it has a couple of jobs on it. If you're used to running scheduled jobs on a Windows server or something like that, it's pretty intuitive, but it's external from the Office 365 license.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's really good, because you guys are an automation layer on top of it, which gives really ultimate flexibility from my standpoint. I like that a lot.
Right. We market ourselves as we're trying to market ourselves as a platform to help customers leverage automation in the way that they need. It's not a pre-canned one size fits all scenario.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a huge benefit from my standpoint. I agree with that. Okay. Another question from Chi. Is this SaaS, first of all? So we'll go with that one first. Is this a SaaS platform?
Sure. It absolutely is. We run the jobs in Azure on their Azure pipeline system. And so all you need to do is navigate to the Azure pipeline portal. And if you want to update your baseline common configurations, you can hit the export button, store those as code. And if you want to deploy those configurations to your tenant, you can hit go on the button that deploys them to all your tenants.
Yeah, I think, okay. So second question, does Simeon require backend admin access to each tenant?
It does. So that's how it integrates. It requires an admin account that is able to both read and apply the configurations that Simeon stores as code. And number,
you're just like hammering out these questions, man. It's like boom, boom, boom. Third, can we manage tenants through policies, and does it have a hierarchical policy inheritance?
So I'm not sure what types of policies you might be referring to there.
But watching, he can respond to this too. He's one of my clients, so he's a perfect guy to talk about this. So yeah, keep digging on that if you want to, or we can wait for Chi to respond to. It's up to you.
Well, I can dig into the second part. So Simeon supports not a concept of a hierarchy, but a concept of layers, and that's how you can produce custom configurations that run in different ways for your different clients. So essentially, we look at that baseline common configuration as a layer, and then we have, and that's stored as code. And then you have your tenant-specific configurations also stored as code. And when you run a deployment and apply those configurations to the tenant, it layers the tenant-specific configurations on top of your common configurations. And you can really have an arbitrary number of layers as well if you really want to. So you could have a baseline, and then you could have a higher level baseline that's specific to healthcare companies that you manage, and then tenant-specific configurations for each one of your clients.
So you can really segregate based on the type of needs the client has.
Exactly.
And then push that out. Another big key, this can all be managed from anywhere,
and
your clients can be anywhere too, right?
Yep. Absolutely. And it gives me good insight as well into what's actually changing. Are people going around the automation and clicking things in the portal? Did Microsoft make a change to their default policies that's going to affect the clients that I manage? So I get an email on my phone every night that says all of your deployed jobs ran successfully and detected zero changes, which is exactly what I want it to say.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What about, just thinking about my standpoint. So, or kind of how my head works, I'm thinking about what value can I bring to my stakeholders? What things can I bring to the table? Do you have reporting that we can get out of this that pretend this is just, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, so I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but it's a good
No
question.
problem.
Can I get any reporting out of Microsoft 365? I keep wanting to call it O365, but you're right with that. But can we get any reporting out of Microsoft 365 that we can bring back to clients or even prospects during assessment periods or anything like that?
Absolutely. So the assessment period is the biggest thing there. When you have a new client, we're going to test what's in the Simeon baseline or in your baseline that's not in the client. And since that baseline includes your best practice security configurations, it's going to tell you, hey, you don't have any of these policies configured that are part of your best practices. There's no MFA required. People can log in from Russia using jailbroken iPhones. It'll show you all of the things that are part of the best practice baseline configuration that aren't there in the tenant. So, that's a big value add in demonstrating what you would bring to your client if you set them up and manage them.
So I don't know if you saw the light bulb just go off in my head as we just went into that, because we talk a lot in my client base about moving the discussion. We talk a lot from moving the discussion from we're just selling widgets, we're just selling Office 365 accounts or whatever. We're talking about moving that into how can we show you what risk you have as a client and then mitigate that risk for you. So we're moving into, we're no longer MSPs or even MSSPs. We're moving into, we are risk mitigation experts. We talk about that a lot. That's what I want my clients. So what can we do using Simeon on the risk assessment side? Keep in mind, before their clients, right? And I know we're getting a little bit off pace, but this to me is like huge value for an MSP. How can we use Simeon prior to being a client during the assessment process to show these things? Because some of the things you just said there is highlighting those gaps and highlighting those things. Can we do that ahead of time before their clients? Obviously, we have to have admin access to the tenant, but what can we do?
Absolutely. So Simeon supports a multi-stage approval, which is a fancy way of saying it supports approving what Simeon wants to do before it actually makes any changes to your tenant. So the simple answer is I can just run a preview and get a report of what changes Simeon would make to your tenant to apply those best practice configurations. And it'll say, hey, you're missing these policies. And so you can do that before you're doing anything with the client via Simeon. You can do that just ahead of time. Say, hey, if you set us up with temporary admin credentials, we can provide you a report of all the things that you're doing wrong today managing your O365, Microsoft 365 environment.
See, you did it too. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, I think, okay, so that just, and if you guys are watching, you just saw the light bulb going on my head, because I'm always thinking about using new tools and new products, again, trailblazer type stuff in a brand new community. I think this is pretty huge, because we just stumbled onto something that you guys, like, we talked about this in our green room and we talked about it in our pre-meeting. This didn't come up, and it's only because I'm listening and we're having a conversation that we're getting deeper and deeper and talking about reporting. But from an MSP that's, I teach MSPs how to sell properly. And prior to that, we have to show risk. We have to do all that risk mitigation stuff. So this is a big thing, because right now, I don't know that there's an assessment platform that looks at Office 365 that automates it. Like,
there are assessment platforms, but there are not remediation paths that you can apply at scale. So you can go, and Microsoft will tell you have a security score of 42 out of 100, which stinks, obviously. Yeah. But actually, you'd be surprised how many people have a security score of 40 out of 100.
Trust me, I'm not surprised at all. The stuff that I see and the stuff our MSPs see, I'm surprised they score 40. I'll tell you that.
For sure. So yeah, there are tools that'll do an analysis and show you what vulnerabilities are and give you advice, but there is no clear path to apply those configurations at scale and make sure that you're bringing that to all of your tenants. So, you can click into the portal and it'll say, oh, you need some baseline security policies. You should go in here, click this, this, and this, and create one. Well, great. I just did it for one of my clients, and now I need to do it for all of them. And since all of them are in a little bit of a different state today, remediating every client is going to be a different exercise. But if you have a set of common baseline configurations and it understands how to say, well, here's what's in the environment today, here's what I want in the environment, here's what I need to change, and it gives you a report for that, it makes that a lot easier to do at scale.
We just came up with a whole nother level of stuff that I think MSP should be doing with this, because just being able to use it, that's one thing to be able to say, okay, on my clients, I can save time, I can save money, I can automate, I can onboard faster, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But being able to go in ahead of time, find all these vulnerabilities that are risk related, hacking related, this is huge, man. I think this is real. And again, you guys are watching this thinking this is we did not rehearse this. This is not planned, because I'm just like, wow, that's a big deal. I think that's really, really huge. So I think that's great. Anything else you want to add to that? I otherwise got a couple more questions here.
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So here's Chi coming back here with 4 more questions. I'm just going to let you go through those. So actually, I'll just say, do you retain any tenant data? So that's Chi coming back with his questions that you guys see in the comments above.
Of course. So, okay, so let's go through them one at a time. So first of all, we don't retain any data in the tenant except for the configurations that are saved as code and stored in a Git repository. So they're stored in source control. They have history, versioning, all that stuff. So we don't retain any tenant data personally, but we do have in the SaaS solution a copy of the configuration stored as code. So, we don't have any PII, for example. So our template aligns with the Microsoft security score in that our baseline configuration makes the Microsoft security score go up, not down. So that's a good thing. The problem with the Microsoft security score is that it's kind of a mess. And they base that score on policies that they don't even have correct algorithms to look at. So it'll tell you you're missing something when you have an actual more secure policy in place. Or it'll tell you to do something that's not even possible using the current generation of Azure technology, because they just never updated the rules for the security score. So the short answer is we bring it up, but the truth is that we're not looking to today optimize that score so that it looks good. But it is something we're looking into in the future, to get to figure out how to get the Microsoft rules to evaluate in a better way.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the Microsoft security score is it's just based on their metrics. It's not necessarily anything that's that. I mean, we can't take it and move it across. It is what it is. It's hard to deal with. So, yeah. Okay. So how does Simeon kept up to date with Microsoft Intune policy update?
So, and again, funny number 3. I'm not quite sure how to answer the question on like what policies you're referring to, but Intune manages the full range of Simeon manages the full range of Intune configurations. So it'll store apps that you're deploying to mobile devices or Windows desktops. It stores your autopilot configuration, your group policy configurations, your logon startup or any kind of script that you run, compliance policies, Windows update policies. So the Intune understands how to talk to the Microsoft backend and pull down and deploy those policies. And so we do have to keep the Simeon software updated with changes as Microsoft releases them, but that is part of what the product's offering. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So hopefully she gets it. She's slightly more technical than me, just for the record. Slightly, you can tell.
Sure. And last one, does Simeon have security control in place or compliance with any other regulatory guidance or certification? So Simeon, again, it is a automation tool. So we're not in your Microsoft environment plugging away at your users or your data or pulling documents out of SharePoint. We don't touch any of those types of controls, types of data. So the security controls that we have in place are basically what Microsoft supports in terms of managing things like pipelines. So we can say that certain people have the ability to do a deployment, not others. Certain people have the ability to export and update your common configuration, but aren't allowed to deploy it anywhere. And we can do things like setting up approvals so that a certain person has to approve, or a certain group of people have to approve before deploying any configurations to specific tenants.
Yeah, I think it's key. The way I kind of look at it is it's pretty similar to like having an automation Chrome extension. Doesn't mess with the data per se, but it makes your job, makes your life easier. I mean, it's simplified version of it, but
Sure. Yeah. I always think back, my background is I worked on help desk many years ago and doing networking. So, Windows creating scheduled jobs. One of those scheduled jobs, which you can run on a schedule or on demand, will export your baseline configurations and store them as code. Another one of those scheduled jobs will take that configuration as well as the tenant specific configurations and deploy them to your tenants.
yeah. Yeah, makes sense. I totally agree. Final question from Chi. He's got a new number 3. So Chi's in Canada. He's in Toronto. So he's saying new Canadian policies or preview policies show up from time to time. How does Simeon capture that?
Sure. I assume you mean conditional access policy.
Oh, maybe he means that. I thought he meant.
Or it could be Canadian.
I'm wrong. Sorry.
I assume they're conditional access policies.
Yeah, it's probably something.
So first of all, this is a great place where Simeon adds value. We have a set of best practice conditional access policies that we give you as part of your baseline. And we update our baseline that we offer you periodically. You don't have to take our updates, but they're available for you and they evolve with Microsoft's recommendations. But this is a good place where Microsoft doesn't actually have preview policies anymore. They deprecated them. And if you try and use them in the portal, it'll say that you can't change them anymore. And now they have another set of baseline policies that they support. And by the way, the security score hasn't been updated to look at the new types of policies. So perfect example where the security score kind of is meaningless.
I just got laughed at for the record. That shows you how technical I am these days. I used to know this stuff, but I just don't anymore. But thanks for the laugh, Chi. I appreciate it. He is from Canada though, so it kind of applied. It was weird.
Yeah, so makes sense. So yeah, Simeon does support automation for export and creation of any type of conditional access policy, and we include in the baseline policies that require MFA for admins, require multi-factor authentication if you're accessing stuff off-site, includes requirement that anyone accessing data from a personal device has to be doing it using application protection policies, so they can't copy out data and avoids data loss is a data loss prevention. So we have a full set of conditional access policies that follow what Microsoft's recommendations are.
Yeah. So let's talk about, if you guys got any more questions for Jeff with me right now, feel free to ask live. This chat will be monitored afterwards. Obviously, Josh from Jeff's team is in there monitoring questions and answering on the fly here. I just want to show a couple things. First of all, you guys can get a free demo by going to the URL that I just put below. It's SimeonCloud.com/start. I'm just going to bring that screen up so you guys can all see that really quickly here. I'm going to add that. Oh, I screwed that up. But you guys can see what that looks like. And obviously, it has the full Simeon Cloud page here. Walks you through the different services and different things, but then it takes you right down to the different type of suites you have, and then you can request a demo right with that /start. So anything specific you want to go through on that, Jeff, right now that we can take you through, or what's your thoughts?
Honestly, we've gone through a lot of it already. As I said, we're trying to be a platform and a partner for our clients. And so we want to work with you to help you figure out how to manage your Microsoft 365 environment, whether you're not doing it at all today or you're already super advanced. And so, we're trying to develop custom engagements for our clients just to help them succeed and come up to date utilizing the Microsoft 365 stack.
Yeah, and we got multiple people saying here they already signed up, so that's huge. I think you guys are kind of, this is interesting because to me it's one of the first things that first type of product that's coming into the MSP/security space that's related to automation from an enterprise mindset. It's very rare on this side. It's usually most of the products that are started on the MSP side are MSPs that find a pain that they're dealing with, and then they create something. You guys are coming from the opposite side. You're coming from the side of enterprise coming down, or I don't say down, but over into the MSP side to create automation around this. I think you got a really unique product. And the one thing that I really want to highlight, which we just stepped on, that security risk mitigation side during your risk assessment. That's huge. Like the ability to show all that in a single report, I think is a massive feature that you guys don't talk about enough. And I think you should.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to bring, I think it's what I said at the very beginning, we're trying to bring the maturity and the benefits and the processes that infrastructure as code has offered to people building solutions in the cloud. And we're just trying to bring that into the MSP and Microsoft 365 space because it just hasn't permeated that sector yet.
Yeah, I think it's key. I think it's huge. So, okay, I think we're good on questions. There's going to be a bunch of stuff that comes up later. Obviously, Josh, that's watching. Jeff, you guys monitor that stuff. My guess is we're going to bring you back in a couple of weeks here. We're going to talk about some more stuff here as we go. I'd like to do maybe a live demo with you guys on a webinar here in the future. I think that would be really cool to show some of these. It's always tough to do live demos, so maybe we do a recorded one too. I don't know.
Sure, but we actually do have a demo video that we're going to provide for any clients that are interested.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. I think we're good. We got awesome content for today. This is a really, really good start. I highly thank you, Jeff Nevins, for coming on with us today.
For having
SimeonCloud.com/start. You guys can see that. Chi also just signed up for a demo, and Chi, I'll talk to you about separate wiser pricing. Actually, one question that just came in, what is the cost of Simeon Cloud? Do you mind going through that right now? That's a question that just came up.
Sure. So it's going to be variable based on what the engagement is, right? If we're helping you get up and running and learn Intune and figure out how to start leveraging Intune at your clients, we offer consulting engagements that range from $2,500 and up. The base cost to use Simeon right now is $80 per tenant that you manage per month. So, if you manage 10 tenants, then it would be 800,
a tenant is basically unlimited users, or how do you qualify?
Right now, we're not doing any pricing based on the number of users that you have in your O365 tenant.
Yeah, so it's based on a tenant. Yeah, that's huge. It could be really, really beneficial because $80 to save, what's 80? I mean, no offense to anybody that gets paid $80 an hour, but what's $80? I mean, it's not that much.
If it saves you even an hour a month per tenant, you're probably making a profit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate all your time today, Jeff. Really great job. These aren't always the easiest to do, and I think you handled it like a champ. So thank you so much for your time today. All you guys that are paying attention, thanks so much for everything you guys did, all the questions. Please remember that they're going to be answering questions in the comments below. If you want a free demo of SimeonCloud.com, just go to SimeonCloud.com/start, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Good job, bud.
Thank you.
Thank you.